Morning, Marigold. Hey, Christy. Hey, Sophia. Hey, Priscilla. Hey, Nina. How are you feeling? Are you feeling any better? I hope so. Morning, Amanda. Hey, Mom. You feeling better? Oh, good. Hey, Roxy. I'm glad you're feeling better. Grandma's in the house. What up? Hey, Grandma. We are here. Everyone is here. Everyone. Morning, Sloth. I think we might. Am I crazy that we might finish this book today? Are we at the end? I think we might be close to the end. Maybe not. She is sleeping. Yes. Sleepy, sleepy girl. Yep. Hey, Avery. We're sleeping. It's very, very good. You're back. I saw that yesterday, Roxy. Make sure you message me what you want for your custom slime from my sister. I mean, obviously I'm going to make it, but it's like on her behalf. As her thank you. We got lots of good stuff going on Patreon. Is Patreon back open now? It will be open on the 1st. Roxy already had an account. I have an idea for a Rice Krispie. So today is an economic blackout, so we're not allowed to buy anything. But tomorrow I'm going to buy new scents. I'm going to try to get a Rice Krispie scent I had back in the day. And I have slushy beads now that I think might make a really good Rice Krispie. I feel like the beginning of this book percent went so fast now. True. Well, the chapters started getting longer, Sloth. I think that's what it is. You know? That's my thought. I agree, though. Inspired by the Mummy. Okay, I'm going to have to ask her for help on that, because I've never seen it, but she will help me. She will help me. You know, she knows. My sister knows all things about that movie, so no problem there. I'm going to redecorate my Kindle during book club today. Send pictures. Black with gold. Oh, totally doable. Black with gold is totally doable. Are we doing a clear slime for it? Because that is like, we could do like a black watercolor with gold glitter. It would be gorgeous. With just like, oh yeah, okay, so a Good Hurt does have clear, yeah. And it would, if we did like just a tiny bit of black pigment to give it just like sheen to it, but not too much to make it opaque. Very cool. That would be a very cool look. And yeah, I have a lot of ideas for this actually. This would be very cool. Very cool, right? Very cool. Very cool. Very cool. Hi, Anya. Oh, Grumpy Grumps. Grumble, 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 in our sleep. Grumbling, grumbling, in our sleep. Sorry, I'm just being weird. Perhaps it's the lack of sleep that has made me the sunshine look lovely. It is nice and warm, actually. We haven't had this much sun in a couple of days, I have to say, now that you mention it. It's been kind of gloomy, guys. Putting in my earbuds to clean the cover. How exciting! What are you doing for it? Are you making anything special? Hey, Jen. Good morning. My husband usually on his birthday, not this year because we had a newborn, but usually he requests that I make him homemade spaghetti and meatballs with homemade sauce. Lack of sleep causes the loopies. You do be right, my dear. You do be right. I figured I'm excited and I want like just to add some marshmallow to add to, oh, that's exciting. Very excited. Family's coming over, he wants steak and going to a speakeasy bar. That's fun. That is one of the things we did on our first date, actually, we went to a speakeasy. We have a funny story about it that we're going to tell her when she's bigger. Secret Husband's jacket accidentally got taken by somebody, but like they definitely didn't mean to take it because they left their jacket in place of his. So we kept the other jacket as like a memento of our first date. Neither of us have ever worn it because it's a terrible jacket. But like when we got up to leave the speakeasy at the end of the night, he picked up this jacket and he goes, "Here's your jacket." And I was like, "That's not my jacket." And he was like, "Oh." And then he looked around and he was like, "Oh, I guess it's my jacket now because they took mine." That was pretty funny, but it does not fit him. I'm good, Madison. How are you? I have my 3-month work review shortly. Oh, okay. I will definitely get it up. I don't know for sure if it's really the conclusion, Amanda. I'll have to let you know. Really? That was a good smile. Are you having good dreams? Great story to tell her. I know she's got great noises. I made too much broth, so I have to. Okay, keep going with that. Keep going. Yeah. Let's make coffee for your dada and coffee for mama. Welcome back, Christy. Go to book club? Are you ready? Okay. Let's go to book club with the baby and the coffee. So, funny story. And that funny story is that ever since, well, I guess not ever since, but like recently since having this baby, let's see if I can sit down carefully. Oh, I did it. Put that coffee down carefully. My algorithm has been feeding me videos of that new, Always Sloth, literally always. You should absolutely read Judy Blume to your granddaughters. 110% vote yes on that. I will be reading Judy Blume to her, so yes. What I was going to say was, though, ever since the last, 2 weeks or so, the algorithm has been feeding me that mom at, I think it's is it the Cincinnati Zoo or Chicago Zoo or whatever, the mama gorilla that just had a baby. Have you guys been seeing that content? And it all looks like me. All the content of the mama gorilla and her baby gorilla looks like it could be me. So I've been sending it to my friends going, look, someone filmed me without permission. Yeah, basically she's looks like this, and she smells her baby's feet, and she tries to eat over the baby's head like this. It's hilarious, you guys. You have to look it up if you haven't seen it yet. Gorillas are us. I mean, I looked at it and I sent it to my husband. I was like, look, it's me. And he was like, they are. I mean, they're too humanoid. They're too close. They shouldn't be in cages. You guys, they're really just, they're too close to human. We shouldn't be keeping them like that. They literally, I mean, she literally is holding her baby, feeding it, and ends up kissing its little feetsies and stuff. And I was like, I do that when she's eating. I kiss her little feetsies. And when I'm eating, I do the same thing where I try to eat over her head. I was like, what if they put me in a cage? Maybe they should. I don't know. You think they should put mommy in a cage? Are you a door hinge for my cage? I know, it hurts my heart too, Amanda. Okay, let's just get you a little bit. There you go. Okay. She is a motorcycle starting up. You've been watching? You've been on full watch. Oh, I don't know that one. Okay. Are we ready to read? Yeah? 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 Okay. She is. She's enjoying her rocking chair. That's right. Okay. she's doing it as I move. It's like the same sounds. That's pretty funny. All right, so we are at 91%. I know she is. It's funny, but like she's doing it with the motion. Morning. It's pretty funny. I wonder if she'll be chatting. I assume that she will be probably singy. She is my sound tech for a couple of reasons. Number one, she is quite vocal already, but second of all, our whole family is full of singers and musicians, so it would be kind of weird for her to be the only one who wasn't. Even her dad, who married into my family, obviously plays guitar, sings to her every day, things like that. So it'd be kind of weird if she didn't. If you guys could see my niece and nephew, free squeaks with each baby, that's hilarious. My niece and nephew, I'm gonna ask my sister, actually, I have a video of them from a couple of days ago. I'm wondering if she'll let me post it if I block out their faces, because hearing my niece, who is 4 years old, sing is wild. Because like, guys, 4-year-olds don't usually sing really well. You know what I mean? Like let's be real for a second about 4-year-olds. They're usually like, it's not great. It's cute, but it's not usually good. But like Zoe, Liz is right. Zoe has soul when she sings. She's got like inflection in her tone. Like, it's crazy actually how good she is. And I told my sister, I was like, she's like literally good. Like, not like, oh, I'm her aunt and I love her good. She's like really good. So yeah, it's wild. So I'm hoping that this little one joins her cousin in the ranks of the singing 4-year-olds. She might be a Broadway baby. She might just be. But let's read. We are at 91% today, y'all, and we are reading chapter 42. Actually, it's a short chapter, so maybe 42 and 43. Let's see what goes on here. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Georgie together again. A spell to sunder a soul, requiring a death long overdue. Hey, Naisa, we just barely started. Good timing. Of all the souls James Juniper has seen this summer, for, by her accounting, Gideon Hill is the foulest soul. It leaks like hot tar from his open mouth, and it pools on the balcony beneath him, wet and black. Juniper figures that's what happens to a soul when it lingers too long, feeding on stolen shadows. It goes to rot like a diseased organ. His soul leaks away from his body, away from the wolf who lies with him. Shouldn't a familiar vanish when its master dies? Well, it drips down between the floorboards. It splashes to the cobbles and runs like black water along the cracks. It's hard to be sure the trampling feet of the crowd. But Juniper thinks that the soul is headed dead north, toward her. She looks back to the scaffold behind her, where her sisters are silhouetted by flames. Bella and Cleo are shoulder to shoulder, rowan branches in their hands, and August is shouting to his men, guarding the platform against the rioting crowd. Agnes is looking down to the face of her daughter, smiling with such love that Juniper's throat seizes. She thinks all of it, the deeps, Avalon, the scars around her neck, and the coal in her heart might actually be worth it if only Agnes and Eve make it out of this twice-damned city together. Then Juniper thinks of the ruby curl of hair falling from the balcony, the smile on Hill's lips as he died, and the crone's voice saying, "Something from the body he was stealing." She understands that Gideon's soul isn't headed for her after all. It's headed for the scaffold. It's headed for the only truly pure thing that Juniper has ever seen in this world, the only thing neither she nor her sisters could ever bring themselves to harm. Eve. And she understands that she only has one choice, and that is a losing choice. First, she curses Gideon Hill and his damned shadows, herself, her terrible choices,
the world that demands such a steep price just for living. And then she says the words, ashes to ashes, dust to dust, mine to yours, and yours to mine. The words Mama Mag used to bind split seams, and then to bind sisters, and then her own soul. Surely they would work now for Juniper. Bindings usually involved ways and means, objects and complicated affinities, but Juniper has nothing but the taste of Gideon Hill's bridle between her teeth, the scars of his collar around her throat, and her own will which does not waver. Oh my gosh. Hey, Jennifer, do we think, before we continue on, that Juniper is going to bind herself to Gideon's soul so that he can't take Eve? That's what it feels like, right? Am I crazy? That's what it feels like she's going to do. They didn't say that explicitly, but that's what it sure feels like. Okay, we're going to keep going. She reaches for his soul as it runs past her and curls her fingers into it. It twists into her hand, fighting to escape. But her will is hammer and anvil, a stone and a sledge. She doesn't let go. She says the words again, and the shadow goes limp and cold in her hands. Juniper fights the urge to toss it to the ground and stamp it like a roach, but she couldn't even if she wanted to. It's streaking up her arms, twining around her upward. She feels it climbing up her collarbone and writhing up her neck, pressing like a cold finger between her lips and pouring itself down her throat. It's like drinking pond slime or January muck, thick and foul and unnatural. She retches at the oily touch of his soul inside her. A laugh rings from somewhere inside her skull, sickly familiar, and a voice whispers, I wanted you to stay with me, James Juniper, and now you always will. He swallows her whole, and the world goes black as the belly of a whale. I got chills. Bella sees the shadow reaching towards the scaffold. She sees her sister step stupidly and bravely and perfectly predictably into its path. The darkness flows up her arms and slips into her mouth, stretching black tendrils up her cheeks, filling her eyes with shadows, and Bella feels the thing between them suffocating, poisonous cold. Juniper stiffens, her mouth open in a silent howl, her fingers clawing at her own chest as if a weed has taken root inside her, and Bella's scream is lost in the howling chaos of the crowd. Seriously, talk about I'll get you, my pretty, and your little dog too. Seriously, Jennifer. Oh my gosh. Only Cleo hears, what is it? Oh, saints. And she sees Juniper, her spine bent in an unnatural arc, her nails digging into her own skin, and her eyes are black as graves. Bella is aware that her own lips are moving in the breathless chant of, oh no, oh no, oh no. He's taking her just like he took all the others. She's got a strong will, your sister. Maybe she can stop him. No, she can't. And Bella knows it. She feels it through the binding between them. Her breath catches. The binding. She can't do it alone anyway. She shoves her will towards Juniper, every scrap of fear and fury and desperate love that she possesses, and she prays that it's enough. Juniper flinches, her neck snaps towards the scaffold, and her lips peel back from her teeth in a snarl that doesn't belong to her. And then it passes. Her spine unbends, her shoulders square, familiar and stubborn. The blackness recedes from her eyes and leaves them clear and silver and entirely her own. She meets Bella's worried gaze and she gives her a tired half smile, and Bella feels a giddy rush of relief until she sees movement at Juniper's side. The black wolf, the one that lay beside its master's body up on the balcony, is standing now beside her sister, looking up at her with red, red eyes. Juniper figures a few hundred years of always getting his own way has spoiled Mr. Gideon Hill. He's grown used to weak wills and whispered words, to women bound and burning. But Juniper learned spite in the cradle. She knows all about long odds and losing choices, about grit and spine. She plants her feet and holds fast. He might still have won in the end. Gideon Hill, who was once George of Hyle, who has been stealing souls for centuries before Juniper or her mother or her mother's mother or her mother's mother's mother were even born. Except that Juniper's not alone. Bella's will floods her heart like the first warm wind of spring. It drives the chill back and presses Hill down inside her until he's nothing but a shard of ice between her ribs. A mocking voice hisses in her head. How long do you think you can keep this up? How long do you think you can resist me? Not forever, she knows. He's a tumor in her breast, waiting for the moment her attention slips or her will flags. But she doesn't need forever. Long enough, you bastard, she thinks, and she takes a single step. It's harder than it ought to be, like there's a weight pulling hard against her, like her muscles aren't quite her own. A warm weight leans against her leg, and she looks down to meet a pair of mournful red eyes. It's Gideon Hill's familiar, still wearing her iron collar, still bound to her master, following him loyally to his next body for the last time. Juniper digs her fingers into the dark rough, and the two of them walk back to the scaffold, to her sisters, to the stake, to the flames that curl like fingers into the sky, beckoning. Bella watches her sister walk back to the scaffold as if she's wading through knee-deep water, as if each step costs her dearly, but she's bound to take it anyway. There are people running and shoving her, well-dressed gentlemen fleeing in terror, shouting inquisitors with blood smeared on their white tunics, mad-eyed men clutching stones and broken bottles, looking for wicked witches to kill. But none of them seem willing to touch the young woman or the black wolf. Bella reaches for her hands as she climbs the steps, but Juniper flinches away from her touch. Her hands curl back on themselves as if they're smeared with something foul. She buries one of them into the black fur of the wolf at her side. June, what happened? Did he bind himself to you somehow? Juniper shrugs one shoulder but doesn't meet Bella's eyes. No. Then how? Then what? I bound him to me. Bella considers bursting into tears. Oh, but June, why? Juniper isn't looking at her, and Bella follows the line of her gaze and sees Agnes shushing a wailing Eve, and Juniper shrugs again and says, had to. We'll fix it. We can find some way somehow. We can find a way to banish him or contain him. A warding spell, maybe, or a healing. There's no time, Belle, Juniper says, and she says it very gently, like a doctor telling a patient some unfortunate news, and she tilts her chin at Agnes and Eve. Take care of her, won't you? She's got to have better than we did. A mama that sticks around. Maybe even a daddy worth a damn. Juniper squints speculatively at August, who's standing guard at the scaffold steps with an iron bar in his hand and a frenzied expression of someone fully prepared to lay down his life. Me too, Naisa. She's gonna need you and Cleo too, to teach her the words and the ways. Mags would like that, I figure. Juniper smiles at her oldest sister. It's the kind of smile that has farewells and regret tucked into the corners, and Bella does not like that in the least. June, what exactly? Juniper limps closer and kisses Bella on one cheek, her lips cracked and hot, and Bella falls silent. Juniper steps around her and pauses in front of Agnes. Agnes frowns at the wolf padding beside her and points up at the stars with the rowan branch in her hand, but Juniper shakes her head. Her hand hovers above the feather-down curl of Eve's head, not quite touching her, but trembling very slightly. Agnes asks her a question and Juniper answers it, still wearing that smile shaped like a goodbye, and she kisses Agnes on her cheek too. It's only as she turns away and stands staring into the flames that her hair fluttering in the heat, her eyes steady, and Bella understands what she's going to do. Oh my God, I know what she's going to do. Juniper doesn't have much time, but she has time to say goodbye to her sisters. Agnes is clutching Eve in one arm and a rowan bough in the other, scowling at Juniper. Where's Gideon? Why is that thing following you? Her eyes flicker to the wolf walking patiently at her side. It's time to go, June. Agnes points up at the sky. What's the matter, honey? What's wrong, honey? You sad? Juniper remembers lying in bed between her sisters when she was young, listening to the slur and the stomp of their daddy downstairs, and Agnes would stroke the hair back from Juniper's forehead and whisper, "It'll be all right." And even as a child, Juniper knew that that was a lie, but it was the kind of lie that became true in telling, because at least there was someone in the world who loved her enough to lie to her. Agnes is frowning so fiercely at her that Juniper thinks she must know what's coming. She must see it in the tremble of Juniper's hand over her daughter. What is going on? Juniper leans down and kisses her cheek. It'll be all right. She turns to face the flames. She hesitates, partly because Gideon Hill is railing and screaming inside her, straining against her like a mad dog against a leash, but mostly because she likes being alive and she wants to keep doing it. Hi. Hi. What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? She wishes she could stay right where she is, with the frost-bitten edge of the wind in her hair and the wild wheel of stars above her, and then the beat of her sister's heart beside her. And she wishes she could run away, mount her rowan branch and disappear with her sisters, never to be seen or heard from again. They might go back home, to the mist-hung mountains and the cold creeks, and they'd build their tower deep in the green woods. They might let the blackberry vines grow high as a rose-thorn hedge around them, and they might raise Eve together in the leaf-dappled dark, safe and secret. She wishes that she were one of those firebirds from Mags's stories, that something might rise from her ashes. She can't hold on much longer. Gideon Hill's soul seeps like venom through her veins, settling into her bones. It seems like a fitting end, at least. Her mother died for her, and now Juniper will die for Eve. Maybe Eve will be the one to finally redeem all those generations of debt, all the sacrifices of the women who came before her. And Juniper draws her last breath. She pats the black wolf once on the head like a loyal hound. Hill twists the knife inside of her, but still she feels some reserve in him, a calculating calm. Maybe he can't quite believe that she's going to do it, even now, because he can't quite imagine loving anything more than he loves himself. Or maybe he thinks he'll survive this. Maybe he plans to slither away from her burning body the way that he left his last one, clinging to the world until he finds some weak-willed creature to bind himself to. He doesn't know that the Eastwoods have spoken to the last three, that they have the secret to his unmaking, that all his sins have finally come to roost. Juniper licks cracked lips. You have a lot of names, Gideon Hill. She feels him cease a struggling, listening. Gabriel Hill, Glenwald Hale, George of Hyle, always G's and H's, so I guess you must have missed her. He coils tighter inside her, cold and terrible, and he just beginning to be afraid. Your sister sends her love, Hansel. Juniper feels a tremor move through his soul, a wave of confusion and longing, and finally of terror as he understands that his death will be true and final this time, that all of his scheming and stealing will end here tonight in the fire that he lit himself. Juniper steps into the flames, and they close their waiting arms around her, hot and close, and she hears Agnes screaming and Bella wailing, "June, no! Someone stop her!" And then there's nothing but the sound of burning and the words in her own mouth. All the king's horses and all the king's men. I need a second. That was really intense. Me either. I did not either, Sloth. I could not have predicted that. This is why we don't do spoilers. The baby was born January 25th. That was insane. That was insane. Me too, Amanda, but like, whoa. Whoa. So Juniper just sacrificed herself to protect her niece and her sisters. Your son came on February 25th? Oh my gosh, they're exactly 1 month apart. That's so cute. Oh, that's amazing. I love that. This is not how it was supposed to go. I hate him too. I love Juniper so much. She's so full of spice and pizzazz. I'm gonna miss Juniper. I really am. She is a super auntie. Like, we ride for Juniper, you guys. Like, what a gem of a human. I know, she's the best, right? So let's go ahead and get the next one and try to emotionally make it through this, because I don't even know. Chapter 43. Ring around the roses, pocket full of poses, ashes, ashes, we all rise up. A spell to bind a soul, requiring an untimely death and a destination. Damn, you just found your phone. Autumn hit it, that's funny. Morning, Freya. That's amazing. It requires an untimely death and a destination. Let's go. Let's go. Juniper's death will not be in vain, not on our watch. Agnes Amaranth screams, the wolf howls, the crowd roars, and beneath all that desperate noise, Agnes hears the soft, inevitable sound of her own heart breaking. She should have known better than to draw that circle so wide. She should have known what it would cost her. Agnes rushes towards the flames, but reels back at the snap of black teeth. Gideon's wolf is standing between her and the fire. There's no wrath in the deep red of her eyes, merely a weary duty. Agnes curls her spine around Eve to protect her from the hiss of cinders and screams, August! He's already beside her, drawn by her scream. She knows by the sound of his swearing that he's seen Juniper standing in the white heart of the fire, her hair floating into a dark halo around her head, her woolen shift burned black. Help me, this damn wolf! Agnes can't seem to string her words into sentences. Juniper's pain is echoing through the binding between them, vast and hot, but August understands her. Agnes faints left, and the wolf follows her. Agnes feigns left, and the wolf follows her, while August leaps behind it. He dives into the flame without hesitation or second guessing, as if it's his own sister burning, and Agnes has the fleeting, mad desire for her daddy to appear beside her so she could show him what real love ought to look like. The wolf snarls and follows him into the flames, jaws reaching for a boot or maybe a leg. A too long second follows, while the wolf pulls August backward, and August refuses to be pulled. Both of them tumble out of the fire, smoking faintly, coughing and retching, but without Juniper. She won't let go of the post. August's voice is raw and smoke-laden. His face is smeared with soot. Agnes looks back into the fire, squinting against the rising heat. Her sister's arms are wrapped tightly around the stake. Agnes can feel the grit of her will binding, running like steel beneath the pain. Her mouth is open, lips forming words that Agnes recognizes even through the bright lick of the flames and the haze of the smoke. All the king's horses and all the king's men. The words to sunder a soul. The words the last three had written for Gideon Hill centuries ago. Agnes understands what Juniper must have done and what she's doing now, and why she will not permit herself to be saved. Agnes feels the broken edges of her heart grate against one another. Here she thought that she had escaped Hill's trap, refused his too high price, but in the end she'd merely delayed the price. In the end, it's still your life or your freedom, your sister's or your daughter. Someone still has to pay. August is beating uselessly at the flames with his shirt now. His chest is smeared with char and ash, and he calls his men down into the square, begging for water, but they're busy holding back the maddening crowd. There will be no circle of cold water, and no whispered words to save Juniper this time. Pan and Strix are circling the fire, crisscrossing above Juniper. Other birds have joined them now, the ordinary pigeons and common crows of the city. They've come to witness this last great act of witching, eerily silent. Agnes hears the wolf give a low, mournful howl, like a bell tolling in the distance, and she knows it's too late, that Juniper's hair has caught fire, a bloody crown, and her dress is flaking away from her body in the gray sheets of ash. Smoke boils like thick grease from her skin. I know, can you believe it? It's crazy. Agnes is the strong sister. She's the steady sister who stands unflinching, but now she must look away. She cannot bear to watch her sister burn. Oh, my God. Juniper is unraveling. Her soul is unspooling from her body, slipping like the smoke through the cracks of the burning building. She wants to follow it, to drift into the sweet dark while her flesh splits and sizzles, but she stays, and she speaks the words again. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Georgie together again. Her words are like fingers picking at a knot, patient and persistent. They burrow between her ribs and find the black tangle of Hill's soul and pry it away from the world, pulling it towards the vast silence of the hereafter. He resists naturally, and Juniper feels him clawing and screaming and generally kicking up 3 kinds of fuss, reducing to nothing but the wordless will to keep existing. But Juniper's lips keep moving. The spell is steady as a heartbeat and hot as hellfire. Maybe it's her sister's wills added to her own. Maybe it's Mama Mags whispering in her ear, "Keep going, honey child." Or maybe it's dying for someone else that's just worth more than living for yourself. Her dress burns first and then her hair. She hoped maybe she wouldn't feel it. Her daddy always said that healing hurt worse than burning, that he'd prayed for a life during the fire and prayed for death afterward. But pain licks like a barbed tongue over every inch of her skin. It nibbles and bites, sinking its teeth bone deep. It occurs to her that she won't be able to speak the words soon. Already her tongue is cracked and swollen, and the smoke is ground glass in her throat. But Hill is still clinging to her like clay on a boot heel, and she feels him stirring with the malicious hope that she might die before his soul is entirely sundered. She might have, except sometimes, if you reach deep enough into the red heart of magic, sometimes a little scrap of magic reaches back out to you. Sometimes, if you bend the rules long enough, they do break. Juniper's eyes are closed, but she feels it arrive, a winged darkness, the shape that smells like witching in wild places, and it perches on her shoulder and brushes hot feathers against her cheek. It occurs to her that it's exactly her kind of bullshit luck that she finally gets her familiar, but she dies before she can lay eyes on him. She tries to clutch its claws with her hand, but there's something wrong with her arms, her hands, and the skin and the sinews between them. All she can do is send him her words and hope somehow that it will be enough. All the king's horses and all the king's men. It's her own voice singing strong and clear through the flames, but it doesn't come from her cracked and boiling lips. It's her familiar carrying the words for her, singing them loud and clear, even as her throat closes and her lips burn. Oh my God. There's a loosening in her chest, a knot unbinding. Hill's scream sounds very far away, as if he's on a train headed into a long tunnel. The only thing holding him to the world now is Juniper's own life, and that won't last long. The heat of the flame fades, and so does the crackle of the burning wood, the hiss of her own skin. Even the pain fades, and she knows that she is dying. Juniper's the wild sister, the sly sister, never caught, always running. But she can't run from this. She hears singing as she dies, distant and familiar, a children's rhyme she used to chant with her sisters on summer evenings when they were young and whole, when the world was soft and green and small, and they thought that they could hold hands forever, unbroken. Bella feels her sister dying, but she doesn't believe it. How can Juniper die? Juniper, who is so young and so bold, who seems twice as alive as everyone around her. If she can die, if that's truly her body burning on the pyre, her pain ringing loud in the line between them, then the world is a far crueler place than even Bella imagined. And she wants nothing to do with this world. She knows precisely how the last 3 must have felt at the end of the age of witches, knowing that something fierce and beautiful was leaving the world, so desperate to preserve even some small piece of that, let their bodies burn around them. But not. Bella draws a sharp breath. They didn't let their souls burn. The 3 stole St. George's victory from him at the last second. They bound their souls to a tower of words and disappeared into nowhere to wait, undying, for the next age of witches to begin. What is magic anyway, if not a way where there is none? Cleo has her arm tight around Bella's shoulders, holding her steady. Bella breaks free and spins to face her. The rose petal that I gave you, the one that I put around your finger, do you still have it? Cleo's face says this is a very odd thing to ask while your sister burns and the city riots, but she reaches into her skirt pocket and produces the petal just the same. It's even more crumbled and dry, but it is still whole. Are you having second thoughts now, love? No, never. Bella cups the petal in her palm. Such a small, fragile thing on which to rest her sister's soul. Agnes! Agnes is swaying, pale, too tear-blinded to see the rose in Bella's hand, too grief-struck to understand the eager intent in her eyes, and then Bella says the words, and hope rises like the sun in Agnes's face. They're the words the three of them had sung as little girls, dancing beneath the fireflies. They're the words the three wrote to bind their souls to witchcraft itself, which have flittered down through the ages as a children's rhyme, not quite forgotten. Ring around the roses, pocket full of posies. Ashes, ashes, we all rise up. Cleo joins Bella's chant, and then Agnes does. August comes next, his voice low and unsteady, Strix and Pan high above them. More voices follow too many to count, singing up from the crowd, the Sisters of Avalon, the Daughters of Tituba, the Women's Association and the Workers' Union, the maids and the mill girls, and all the witches of New Salem who came when the East Woods called. Together they call the magic, and the magic answers, boiling through their veins, and Bella waits until it crests like a wave in her chest before she curls her fist around the petal, crushing it, and she tosses the remains into the night. The sky does not split open, no black tower appears, but a sudden wind rises sharp and green and rose-sweet. The wind tangles Bella's skirt and whips the flames high. It hovers above the pyre, waiting. Bella knows the precise moment that Juniper dies. The line that leads to her youngest sister goes slack, and Agnes screams. The wolf howls, and it goes abruptly quiet. Bella sees a pale shadow rise from the fire like mist before the witch wind carries it away. For a moment she thinks she hears voices calling, almost like three women welcoming a fourth. Or maybe she merely hopes that she hears that. The spell ends and the wind dies, and a strange silence falls over the square, as if even the most foolish of them knows something grave and grand has indeed happened. Bella feels her knees crack against the scaffold, and then the sting of tears and the warmth of Cleo's arms are around her. Bella's the wise sister, the bookish one, the knowing one, but she doesn't know whether this was enough. Agnes wants to climb into the fire and burn alongside her sister. She wants to scream until her throat is flayed raw from screaming, until the whole city has to stop and look and see what they have wrought. She wants to step into nowhere and call Juniper's name. But there are people swarming up the steps now. Some of the most devout inquisitors and their followers have rallied and fought past August's men. August rushes to meet them, iron bar whipping back and forth, but Agnes knows that he can't hold them for long. She looks down at Eve, awake now, and frowning fiercely, and then she reaches for the rowan branches and climbs to her feet. She tries to think of nothing but the cool strength of the wood in her hands and the sharp scent of sap. Not the third bough she leaves lying on the scaffold's riderless. Not Juniper's face when the crone told them the spell for flight. Not the way that she looked up at the sky as they were bound to the stake, sly and knowing, as if the moon was a long-lost lover that she would soon meet again. The scaffold blurs now before her, fractured by her tears. She stumbles to Bella, who leans half-collapsed in Cleo's arms and presses a branch into her hand. Come on, Belle. It's time to go. Bella looks as if she too would like to lie down and let the flames wash over her, but she doesn't. She stands slowly, as if she has aged several decades, and she offers her hand to Cleo. She pulls her to her feet, but does not release her hand. You could still come with us. Cleo shakes her head once. No, I'm needed here. The daughters do have work to do, and a chance to move in the open without Hill. But she touches Bella's face, thumb brushing over her cheekbone. I'll come when I can. And then she draws a stub of chalk from her pocket and marks a shape on the scaffold singing a song. Cleo blurs around the edges, not quite yet invisible. "Don't keep me waiting, Miss Quinn," Bella says, as the heat of it makes Agnes look away. Her eyes find August forced to the top of the stairs now, iron bars still swinging. His mouth is red and swelling. A bright line of blood runs from a cut at his temples. I know. And he throws a wild look back to Agnes, and she knows that he intends to stand there until she's safely gone, or until he can no longer stand at all. I know, honey, I know. This last look is the closest that the two of them can come to a goodbye, and Agnes reaches for Bella's hand and whispers the words, ladybird, fly away home." An airy and weightless feeling spreads from Agnes's fingertips to her ribs, as if her blood has been replaced by a rising mist. She and her sisters, well, she stumbles over the single words at the absence of the soft S at the end. Sister. She mounts the rowan branch and feels the bare feet lift from the scaffold. They rise into the air like smoke, or like witches in the way back days when they flew with the clouds as their cloaks and stars as their eyes. They follow the spirit and spirals of cinder and ash with their familiars winging alongside them, leaving behind the city that hates them and the people who love them and their sister who died for them. It's only in Agnes's head that she hears a small and wild girl begging her, "Don't leave me." The air grows clean and cold as they fly higher, smokeless, moonlit. The world feels vast and boundless around Agnes, like a house with all its walls and windows thrown down, and she clutches her daughter tighter to her chest. She thinks she hears a muffled gurgle from the wrapped bundle, almost like a little laugh. The sound outweighs the grief in Agnes's chest, like a brass scale tipping. They had lost too much. A library called back and then burned, a sister found and then lost forever. But they had not lost everything. Not the sound of her daughter flying in the moonshine on her skin, laughing. Beneath them, the city square looks small and dim, and Agnes sees upturned faces and feels the tug of hundreds of watching eyes. She can almost see the new stories cast like dandelion seeds behind them, taking root in the city below. Stories about shadows stolen and then set free, about villains and wolves and young women who walk willingly into the fire, about 2 witches flying where there should have been 3, an owl and an osprey flying beside them, and Agnes wonders if any of them notices the 3rd creature winging with them, black as sin, nearly invisible against the night. Or perhaps they see it and they think nothing of it. Every crow is black, after all. Perhaps from so far below, they can't see the way the crow's eyes burn, like the last stubborn coals of a dying fire, or the way that they stare at some distant point in the sky, as if he's flying to meet someone on the other side of nowhere. There's a part 5, you guys. Oh my God. How many miles to Babylon? 3 miles score and 10. Can I get there by candlelight? There and back again? A spell for safe travel requiring a lit candle and 70 steps. On the spring equinox of 1894, the last section was 1893, you guys. On the spring equinox of 1894, there is still snow lingering on the streets of Chicago. It gathers along the curbs, sooty and sullen, waiting to crumble over the boot tops and soak the trailing hems of cloaks, while the winds sneak down collars and beneath brims of hats. Agnes Amaranth doesn't mind it, though. She'll be leaving soon. She steps into the early evening alley with her cloak pulled tight around her neck and her ears full of the hum and song of women's voices. Agnes came to Chicago following a story she read on the 2nd and 3rd page of the papers, well below the hysterical headlines about witches burning. Chaos reigns in New Salem. Voodoo revolt shakes Richmond. Coven discovered in St. Louis. Will your city be next? It's a story about a lowly button sewer at Hart and Schaffner Garment Factory who took issue with her employer's decision to cut women's wages and instigate a strike. The strike was met with brutal beatings and the illegal but unpunished burnings of at least one accused witch. Agnes suspected brutality wouldn't break the garment workers' rebellion at all, but merely harden it like beaten steel. She wasn't mistaken. In the dim basement of a settlement house, Agnes met a collection of women with clenched jaws and iron spines, their eyes bruised with too many long shifts and their knuckles swollen with too many hours bent around a needle. Their English was sparse and shifting, interspersed with lilting strings of foreign words and unfamiliar vowels, but they brought their daughters to translate for them, both women and children looking at Agnes with a mix of skepticism and hope. One of the older women asked in a voice like pipe smoke and lead, "Who are you exactly?" And Agnes's arms were bare beneath her cloak, and she spread them wide. "I'm a sister, a friend." Sorry, wrong voice. "I'm a sister and a friend, a woman who wants a better world." And she smiled her witchiest smile. "I have in my possession certain ways and words you might find useful from what I've read. You already have the will." There were whispers and glances, and some women shuffled out, unwilling to add witchcraft to their list of crimes. But some edged nearer to her. Some remembered the words their mothers sang to them on the winter's night, and the spells their aunts chanted on the solstice. Some of them had tasted power, and they wanted more. And Agnes gave them the words on thin slips of paper rolled tight. There were words for binding tongues and breaking machines, for healing hurts and causing them, for setting fires and walking through them unscathed. The papers disappeared up sleeves and beneath aprons and waited like hidden knives for their moment. One of the girls, young and fierce-looking, with the wary black eyes of a winter fox, stared at the paper in her hand with such intensity that Agnes thought it might burst into spontaneous flames. Her fingertips were pressed white where her hand held the paper. Agnes is not, therefore, entirely surprised to hear footsteps padding after her down the snow-spotted alley. She does not look behind her. She turns down an even narrower lane, crisscrossed with drooping laundry and lined with dim doorways, before she turns around. "Bessie, was it?" The girl flinches, eyes huge and feral, but she tosses her head in denial. "Yeah, they call me Bessie when I get here. Bathsheba is my real name." Her accent makes Agnes think of the deep snow and rich furs of little Yulia. The Demonoviches stayed in New Salem, living in the west wing of Inez and Jenny's well-warded house. Agnes visited once over the winter and found the manor transformed into a sunny, sprawling safe house, a place to run for any woman who wants it. "All right, well, how may I help you, Bathsheba?" She doesn't answer, but her eyes skittle hungrily over the every inch of Agnes's skin. From the sleek silk of her hair to the ragged black of her cloak, they linger on her face, as if mentally comparing it to the etchings on the wanted posters, the cartoon papers. "You're one of them, aren't you?" Agnes has found it unwise to advertise her identity. Witch hunters have sprouted like thistles across the country, along with wanted posters listing rather gratifying sums of money in reward for information leading to her arrest. She travels in disguise, under false names and befuddling magic, and never lingers in one place too long, although she has found herself in Chicago several times over the winter. So when Bathsheba asks her name, Agnes widens her eyes and says, "One of who?" The girl glares before she says low and quick, "The first three." Agnes should deny it, but there's something about this girl, the desperation or the fury or the fingerprints bruising and circling around her wrist, that makes Agnes just nod her head once. Bathsheba's face ignites. She licks her lips. Then I wonder if I want... Agnes suspects she struggles less with English and more with the immensity of her desire. The hollow shape of her hunger, the light in her eyes remains, and it reminds Agnes strongly of her younger sister. "Here, girl, speak the words and draw a circle. You'll find the place you need to go." And Agnes steps closer and sings her a rhyme about wayward sisters and stolen crowns. She doesn't write them down. These words are too precious and too dangerous to risk anything more than a whisper. But she doesn't have to. The girl's lips move over the syllables like hands running over a key. Not tonight, though. It's the equinox, and we will all be busy. The girl bows her head and hesitates and withdraws a small pewter charm from her skirt, a delicate case bearing a series of branches and rooted symbols that might indeed be letters, and she presses it into Agnes's hand. My great-grandmother knew certain words, and she would not, well, hang these in your daughter's door for protection. Agnes slips that into her pocket and presses her palm over it and says, thank you. Agnes watches as Bathsheba leaves, shoulders braced, hair dark, wild, tangled, and allows herself to pretend for a moment that she's a different young woman in a different city. The wind whips her tears dry before they fall. She's several strides farther down the alley when a low, teasing voice speaks behind her. Evening, miss. She squints into a nearby doorway but can't seem to make her eyes focus on the shape inside it. The voice whispers again, and two figures come into sudden focus. It's a bearded man with a gambler's grin and a red scarf, and a rosy-cheeked baby girl perched in the crook of his arm, curls spilling like flames from beneath her woolen cap. The girl raises both arms to Agnes and demands in a tone of a monarch who's been kept waiting longer than she's accustomed to by her underlings, Mama! Hello, loves. Eve falls into her arms with a satisfied oomph and immediately grabs two fistfuls of Agnes's hair. Mr. August Lee watches them with his smile pulled crooked and wry. August returned to Chicago 6 weeks previously, along with a smallish gang of men from New Salem, with the intention of spreading women's witching among his old friends and malcontents, and seeing if perhaps certain concessions couldn't be won from the Pullman Palace Car Company after all. He claims his work will be done before summer, when he will join Agnes with whatever fight she's found for them next. Weren't you two supposed to be lying low at the Everly Club? Miss Pearl has provided Agnes with the name and address of a madam sympathetic to their cause, of witches and working women who was willing to trade certain words and ways for hard-to-come-by herbs in exchange for safe harbor. August shrugs. Oh, well, the Inquisitors showed up asking questions and looking for trouble. And did they find any trouble? Yeah. August's eyes spark like flint against hers. Yeah, they found a bit of trouble. More than they bargained for, in fact. He touches his jaw where there's a bruise beginning to bloom beneath his beard. I took care of them, though. I thought it best to leave the club and not to draw more unwelcome attention. Besides, he grabs one of Eve's little toes and wiggles it. Her ladyship here wanted her mama. Agnes kisses her daughter's cap and breathes the summery smell of her, all sunshine and sweat despite the chilly ice of the wind. She glances up at the sky, dimming quickly into darkness. Well, perhaps I ought to stay tonight if... And August brushes this away. No. You two go. I'll find us a place to stay and draw a circle for you to return. He chucks Eve under the chin, and she burbles pleasantly at him. Give them my regards, will you? Agnes kisses him once, and if she lingers longer than strictly decent, if his hand is lower and warmer on her waist than it ought to be, she finds she doesn't care. She turns away and draws a stick of white chalk from her pocket, and she sketches a neat design on the wall, 3 white interwoven circles. Her daughter's small fingers are splayed beside hers on the soot-stained brick for half a second before the two of them are pulled into elsewhere, or perhaps nowhere. Wow. All right. There's still a little bit more. I do have to skadooch, but tomorrow we will finish this for sure. I thought it was going to be over today, but it's not. And we'll finish it, and maybe we'll start a little bit of Princess Diaries tomorrow. We're at 96%, so it's almost done. Oh, I didn't spill on her. Thank goodness. It's not hot anymore anyway. You guys, that was too much. I'm not gonna lie. That was extremely difficult. Thankfully, that last chapter that we read brought us into better spirits because Eve is a little girl and cute now. But like Juniper, it's harsh. You got 100 oh, during the time of reading, I had a feeling, really? You thought so, Jen? I had no idea. They did emotionally damage us, yes. I thought that they were going to trick everyone and like get out of the way and burn Gideon at the stake. That's what I thought was gonna happen. Clearly, I was incorrect. Cross-stitching, we love to see it. That's one of the things I wanna learn how to do. Okay, well, I am emotionally wrecked for the day. I'm sure you all are too. We will finish tomorrow. And like I said, probably start Princess Diaries. I saw the other two. Yeah, that's true. That's true. And the other two had familiars, not just families. Yeah. You know someone who can teach it? That's good. Maybe I'll hit you up when I have free time one day. I'm glad that, yeah, more to say about that? I was gonna say, I'm glad that Juniper didn't have to die without getting her familiar. His soul would be bound to another and ripped from, I know, you're right. She had to do it, I get it, but it doesn't make me not sad. You know what I mean? Just because you're right doesn't make me not sad. I love Juniper. In fact, I love all three of them. They each have something that this author has done a really good job with, that they each have something that like brings you into them, you know? None of them are perfect. None of them are like the perfect heroine by any means. They all have flaws, but I love it too. I love it too. I wonder if at the end of it, because it says we're at 96%, I wonder if there'll be like, you know, sometimes with books like this, they'll have like book club stuff to go through. The character development was absolutely beautiful. I completely agree, Jen. So we'll finish it tomorrow and we'll start our next book and just keep chugging along like we do. I think maybe think about it today, and tomorrow we should all discuss who your individual favorite of the sisters was and who you also most relate to. Don't tell me now. Think about it, because it requires a little bit of thinking. And also who you thought. Remember in the beginning of the book how they described each sister, for like each chapter in the beginning, the first 3 chapters were each the description of sister, and I had very different thoughts about them at the beginning than at the end. So, you know, like when we first read, I was like, oh, I'm totally Bella. But like, I don't know, you know, I don't know now. It's very interesting. So let's think about it. It's right up there with Land of Stories. It's very good, very well woven. I mean, just what a great book. It's like grown-up Land of Stories. Really excellent. Okay, I will see you all either later or tomorrow. Either way, I love you all, and we will finish on the morrow. Bye, guys.